Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're doing a deep dive on something I know a lot of you are interested in, hair loss.
It's definitely a topic that comes up a lot.
It does. And we're going to look at it from all angles,
Sure.
like what causes it and how it makes people feel, emotionally.
Right. Because it's not just about the physical changes.
Exactly. It can really impact your self-esteem and mental health.
For sure. And there's so much misinformation out there.
Yeah, so we're going to try to clear some of that up.
Yeah, you bet.
We've got some really interesting material to go through today, including insights from Sarko Beauty.
They offer a lot of solutions for hair loss.
They do. And they have some great information on their website.
Yeah.
We'll also be talking about actress May Calamawy and her experience with alopecia.
Oh, wow. I love her.
She's amazing.
Right.
And she's been very open about her journey, which is so inspiring.
It is. So where do you want to start?
Well, I think it would be helpful to first understand what causes hair loss.
Absolutely.
Because there are so many different factors that can contribute to it.
Yeah, there are a ton.
We've got alopecia, hormonal changes, genetics, stress, even medical treatments can play a role.
Right. It's complex.
It is. So to help us break it all down, can you walk us through some of these common causes?
Sure. Let's start with alopecia areata, which is an autoimmune disorder.
Okay.
So basically, your immune system attacks your hair follicles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Which causes those patches of hair loss you sometimes see.
It's like your body's turning against itself.
Yeah, in a way, it's not fully understood why this happens.
Right.
But there are some theories like viral infections or genetic predisposition might be triggers.
That's fascinating. Okay, what about hormonal changes?
Ah, yes. Hormones. They're essential for regulating hair growth cycles.
I knew it.
It's like this delicate dance between different hormones, androgens, estrogens.
Wow.
And they directly affect the hair follicle's growth phases. But when these hormones fluctuate, things get out of whack.
Yeah, like during pregnancy.
Exactly. Pregnancy, menopause, thyroid disorders, all these things can disrupt the balance and lead to hair loss.
Sometimes it's temporary, right?
It can be, but in some cases it's more long-lasting.
That makes sense.
Okay.
And then there's genetics.
Oh, yeah. You can't escape those genes.
It seems like some people are just predisposed to hair loss no matter what.
Sadly, that's true. Family history is a big indicator for certain types of hair loss.
Like male pattern baldness.
Exactly. Androgenetic alopecia. That's the technical term. But yeah, if you've got a family history of it, you might be more likely to experience it yourself.
It's like a coin toss?
Kinda.
Yeah.
But even if you're predisposed, there are things you can do to manage it.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got genetics, hormones. What about stress? I know that can play a role too.
Absolutely. Stress can really mess with your hair growth cycle.
How so?
Well, it can push more hairs into a resting phase,
Oh.
and then eventually they fall out.
It's like they give up.
In a way. And what's interesting is that this can happen weeks or even months after a stressful period.
Really? So it's not just about feeling stressed in the moment.
Nope. The effects can linger. May Calamawy actually talked about this in Glamour magazine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she said sometimes her hair loss would show up like 3 to 6 months after a stressful event.
Wow. That's crazy. So even if you think you're managing your stress, but it could still be impacting your hair.
Exactly. It's something to be mindful of.
It really is. And it creates a bit of a vicious cycle, doesn't it?
It totally does. Because then you stress about the hair loss.
Right. Which just makes it worse.
Exactly. It's a tricky situation.
It is. Okay. And then we can't forget about medical treatments,
Oh, right. Those can definitely contribute to hair loss.
like chemotherapy.
Exactly. Those drugs are powerful, but they can also damage hair follicles.
It has a side effect.
Right, because they're targeting rapidly dividing cells, and that includes hair cells.
It's one of the most visible side effects of chemo.
It is.
Ah,
And it can be really tough to deal with emotionally.
definitely. So as we can see, there are a lot of different causes of hair loss.
A whole bunch.
From our genes to our immune system to the stress we face in our lives. It's clearly a complex issue.
Super complex, with both biological and psychological components.
Exactly.
Eh?
But I think it's time we delve a little deeper into that emotional side of things.
I agree.
May Calamawy's story is so powerful in highlighting how hair loss can affect your sense of self.
Especially for women.
Yeah. I mean, growing up in the Middle East, she faced so much societal pressure surrounding a woman's appearance.
That's true. There's a lot of emphasis on hair as a symbol of beauty in that culture.
It's almost like it's tied to her worth.
Yeah, and that makes the experience of hair loss even more isolating and emotionally challenging.
I can't even imagine.
It's tough.
And she was going through all of this while also caring for her mother, who was battling stage 4 lung cancer.
Wow, that's a lot to handle.
It is. To have those intense emotions of grief, fear, helplessness, combined with the visible changes of hair loss.
It's a double whammy.
It really is. It highlights how interconnected our physical and emotional well-being truly are.
Absolutely. They're not separate at all.
I think one of the most fascinating and poignant parts of her story is how she named her bald spot Margot.
Oh, yeah, I loved that.
After Margot Robbie.
It's so clever.
I know, right? It says so much about her resilience and her ability to find humor in a difficult situation.
Totally. Like she was taking back control in a way.
Exactly. And later on, she actually wrote her experience with alopecia into the show, Rami.
I know, that's incredible.
Such a powerful example of turning a personal challenge into art.
It is. And it helped to raise awareness and normalize conversations about hair loss.
Which is so important. But let's be real, hair loss can be incredibly distressing.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What advice would you give to someone who is struggling with the emotional impact of it all?
Well, first and foremost, remember that you're not alone.
Good point.
Hair loss is much more common than people realize.
That's true.
So finding support, whether it's from friends, family, or a therapist, is crucial.
It's like that saying, a problem shared is a problem halved.
Exactly. Talking about your feelings can make a huge difference.
It can. Are there other resources that might be helpful?
Oh, yeah. There are some great online communities and support groups.
Where people share their experiences.
Exactly. They offer advice and connect with others who get it.
That makes sense. What about professional help? Is there someone who specializes in hair loss?
Yes, there are trichologists.
Trichologists?
Yeah, they focus on hair and scalp health.
Interesting.
They can help diagnose the cause of your hair loss, give you personalized advice, recommend treatments or solutions.
Oh, wow. So they're like the hair experts?
They are. May Calamawy actually mentioned seeing one herself.
So it's definitely something to consider.
It is. If you're concerned about hair loss, it's a good first step.
That's reassuring to know that there are experts who can help.
Right. And speaking of solutions, there are options available to help people feel more confident.
Yeah, like Sarko Beauty.
They have a great range of wigs, toppers, extensions.
It's amazing how far those technologies have come.
Right. They look so natural now.
It can be a real game changer for people who are struggling with hair loss.
For sure. It's about finding what works for you and what helps you feel your best.
I love that. It's about feeling good in your own skin.
Exactly.
And remember, you are not defined by your hair.
So true.
Well, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive so far.
Oh, it has. We've covered a lot of ground.
From the science behind hair loss to the emotional impact.
It's fascinating stuff.
It really is. And it's a reminder that while hair loss can be a difficult experience, it doesn't have to define us.
Absolutely. There's support, available resources to explore, and ultimately it's about finding what makes you feel confident and comfortable in your own skin.
Couldn't have said it better myself. We'll be back in a moment to continue this deep dive.
Sounds good.
We'll be discussing more about the societal pressures surrounding hair loss and how we can challenge those beauty standards.
Yeah.
Don't go anywhere.
Looking forward to it. It's kind of wild how these cultural norms can shape how we view things like hair loss, you know?
Yeah. Like, especially for women, there's this expectation of having, like, thick flowing hair.
Totally.
Mm.
And when it's not like that, people can feel really conflicted, you know?
Yeah. It just adds another layer of difficulty to the whole thing.
Exactly. And May talked about that pressure, you know, growing up in the Middle East where those beauty standards are even more intense.
Right. She mentioned how much emphasis is put on a woman's appearance there, like it's connected to her worth or something.
It is. It's really sad to think about that added pressure on top of everything else someone going through hair loss is already dealing with.
Yeah, it's like this cycle of negativity, you know?
Totally. You're struggling with the hair loss, which is hard enough, and then you're getting hit with all these messages that make you feel even worse.
Ugh. And that stress can make the hair loss worse.
Exactly. It's like a trap. It's so hard to break free.
It really is.
Yeah.
But I think May's story really highlights how important it is to challenge these ideas of beauty and, you know, redefine it for ourselves.
For sure.
Mm.
She took something really difficult and turned it into a chance to raise awareness and get people talking.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It is. It's inspiring to see someone take something that's often seen as like shameful and turn it into an opportunity for growth.
Totally. It's important to remember that hair loss doesn't discriminate.
Nope. It can happen to anyone.
Young, old men, women, doesn't matter.
It's true. And while there are some like common causes, it's always best to talk to a doctor to figure out what's going on in your specific situation.
Makes sense. So if someone starts noticing hair loss, what's the first step?
I'd say reach out to a dermatologist or a trichologist.
A wellentologist.
A trichologist. They specialize in hair and scalp health.
Oh, cool. so they can figure out what's causing it.
Yeah, they'll do an assessment, run some tests if needed, and make sure there aren't any other health issues going on.
So it's about getting a diagnosis before trying to treat it yourself.
Exactly. Once you know the cause, you can look at your options.
Like medical treatments or lifestyle changes?
Right, or even just understanding that it might be temporary.
Okay, so even if there isn't a cure, there are still things you can do to manage it.
Totally. We've talked about companies like Sarko Beauty.
Yeah, they offer wigs, toppers, and extensions.
Right. Those can make a big difference.
They really can. And those solutions have come a long way.
They have. They look so natural, and they're much more comfortable now.
That's great. But beyond those external solutions, there's also self-acceptance.
Totally. Challenging those beauty standards that make us feel bad about ourselves.
I love that. So it's about focusing on what makes you feel good.
Exactly. Whether it's trying different hairstyles, embracing your natural look, or finding ways to express your style.
Yeah, like owning your look.
Exactly. Defining beauty on your own terms.
I love that. And there's a whole community out there who understands what you're going through.
Yeah, you're never alone in this.
It's true. This deep dive has been really eye-opening for me.
Me too. It's such a complex issue.
It is. It's not just about the physical changes, but also the emotional and social aspects.
Totally. And May's story is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, she turned a difficult experience into something positive.
And helped so many people along the way.
She really did. It's a reminder that true beauty goes way beyond how we look.
It really does.
Speaking of finding solutions and feeling confident, I want to circle back to Sarko Beauty for a second.
They're a great resource.
They are. They offer so many options from wigs and toppers to extensions.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things people should think about when they're checking out those solutions?
That's a good question. I think the first thing is your lifestyle. You know what will be comfortable and practical for you.
So are you looking for a full wig or just a topper or maybe some extensions?
Exactly. Then think about what kind of hair you like, human hair or synthetic.
Oh, and the color and style.
Totally. There's a lot to consider.
There is. It can feel overwhelming.
It can. But companies like Sarko Beauty offer consultations.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, they'll help you figure out what's best for you.
That's great because it can be tough to navigate all those options on your own.
It really can. And it's important to remember that these solutions are about empowering yourself and feeling good.
Right. It's not about trying to fit some standard of beauty.
Exactly. It's about finding what makes you feel authentically you.
I love that. It's about finding solutions that align with your sense of self.
Totally.
Yeah,
and there's no right or wrong answer.
It's about what works for you on your journey.
Exactly.
We've talked about the emotional side of hair loss, and I'm wondering, what are some ways to cope with those feelings of self-consciousness or even grief that can come up?
First, it's important to let yourself feel those emotions. You know?
Like not try to bottle them up.
Exactly. Hair loss is a big change, and it's natural to have all kinds of feeling.
I can imagine it feeling like a loss of identity for some people.
Absolutely. And that's where a therapist can be really helpful.
Oh, right.
They can give you a safe space to process those feelings and develop healthy coping strategies.
So it's not just about the physical changes, but also taking care of your mental and emotional well-being.
Totally. And don't forget about your support system.
Friends and family.
Yeah. And there are online support groups, too, where you can connect with people who get it.
That's awesome. There's so much power in community.
There really is. Just knowing you're not alone can make a huge difference.
It can. This conversation has been so insightful.
Yeah, we've covered a lot.
We have, from the science to the emotional side of things.
And more complex than a lot of people realize.
It really is. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is that hair loss doesn't have to define us.
It's just one part of our story.
Exactly. And there are solutions out there, both practical and emotional.
And resources to help us navigate this experience.
Absolutely. So before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Ooh, I love a good thought-provoking question.
Me too. This one's been on my mind throughout our conversation. How do we as a society challenge those beauty standards that contribute to, the emotional distress of hair loss?
Yeah, that's a big one. I think representation is key.
Like seeing more people with different hair types and experiences in the media.
Exactly. And celebrating those differences instead of trying to hide them.
It's about changing how we define beauty to be more inclusive.
Yeah. And recognizing that beauty comes in so many forms.
I love that.
Yeah.
And having these conversations more openly can help too.
Totally. The more we talk about it, the less scary it seems.
And the more empowered we feel to just be ourselves.
Yeah.
Hair or no hair.
Absolutely. So for anyone listening who's feeling alone in this journey, there's help out there.
Yeah, we've mentioned some resources, but let's recap those just in case.
Sounds good.
First, don't be afraid to talk to a doctor.
Right. A dermatologist or trichologist can help you figure out what's going on.
And they can point you in the right direction for treatment.
Exactly. And there are support groups and online communities, too.
Where you can connect with people who get it.
Exactly. They offer advice, support, and a sense of community.
That's so important. And of course, there are companies like Sarko Beauty.
They offer wigs, toppers, extensions, all kinds of things.
It's amazing how natural looking those solutions are now.
It's true.
Right.
It's great that people have those options.
It is. So whether you're looking for professional help or connecting with others or trying different solutions, just remember, you're not alone.
And you have choices.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, true beauty isn't about how we look.
Nope. It's about so much more than that.
It's about being comfortable with who we are.
Embracing our differences.
And finding what makes us feel good.
Exactly. Like May's story showed us, our challenges can actually become our strengths.
It's a good reminder that we all have a story to tell.
And sharing those stories helps everyone.
It does. Well, this has been an amazing deep dive.
It has. I've learned a lot.
Me too. And I hope our listeners have too.
I hope so.
Thanks for joining us today.
Of course, it was my pleasure.
And to all of you out there, remember, you are beautiful, you are worthy, and you are not defined by your hair. Until next time, take care.